Darren has been a friend of mine, and I've always promoted the fact that he's been involved in all levels of government, from presidential races to the lowest local race. And when he ran for office, yeah, we're on. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Volpe Bazzo Report. We are here on February 5th. This is actually a 53-degree day. Last night show we did, it was so cold when I got home.
How cold was it, Andy?
That Tommy kept looking through the window. He kept looking through the window when I got home. Finally, I had to let him in.
That's terrible.
But anyway, I want to say hello to our number one fan.
Just awful.
Our number one fan, Marianne McCara. We got to say hello to Marianne McCara.
Hello, Marianne.
We have to say hello to Christine Scotty, who puts our shows on YouTube.
Thank you, Christine. Putting up with everybody in your life.
Though our other half, Brian Fumagalli, is not here today. Neither is Dominic. But apparently when Darren does a show, Dominic never shows up. But we do have a return guest from, if you remember last month, we had Jeffrey Deskovic from the Jeffrey Deskovic Freedom Foundation?
Foundation for Justice.
Foundation for Justice. But we're going to talk about a little bit more than that this time, because in my conversations with Jeff, he actually is pretty well read on issues regarding New York and the nation, and I think I want to pick his brain besides Darren, because a lot of things happen.
And just to clarify, there's no nudity, right? Is that what we decided?
Right,
we decided. Yeah.
Well,
over my objection, but yes, that was.
We can curse, but just no nudity.
Well, open your shirt and show a nipple.
Yeah,
I
crazy.
I want to show my California tattoo.
I think YouTube would ban the
California
show.
and.
Right. I think YouTube would ban the show.
Who was that singer at the Super Bowl?
Adam Levine?
Adam Levine. He has bro, B-R, and his nipple is the O.
There.
I'm not going to comment.
See, I didn't watch the Super Bowl because I don't recognize football's right to exist.
Janet Jackson's nipple we're not allowed to look at, but Adam Levine's whole naked torso.
But anyway, because we had, we were just told today, Dominic told me earlier that he wasn't going to make the show. But Brian now told me just about a couple hours ago that, something he did at home, but he's all right. So Jeff was kind enough to come all the way from Albany to sit in with us again, and Darren wasn't here for last week's show, but Darren knows Jeff from 7 years ago.
Yeah, we actually met in your taxi.
Yes.
In your taxi.
That's when Jeff had a beard.
Yeah, he had a long beard.
So I think that actually would have been 11 or 12 years ago then, not 7.
It could.
I'm closing in on being home for 12 years.
No, I know that, but he's only been in Peekskill.
Oh.
Maybe 8, 9 years.
Oh, probably more, probably like 8 years. Yeah. Wow.
So even though
I
knew you, but you were in the cab when Darren got in the cab.
6, 7, 8,
But
9.
anyway, the fact is that Jeff told me he just got back from Albany, and I've got him sitting next to Darren because they got the smell of Democrat on them, and I got people in the cab that I got to go back to work, and so. But seriously, what were you doing up in Albany?
So today was Albany Day, and myself and a lot of other advocates, we did a lobby day on discovery. So that meant we met with a lot of elected officials about discovery.
You're about legal discovery, not the channel.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Tell people what discovery is, because you can't assume everybody knows what you do.
Right.
What is discovery?
Yeah, so discovery means that the process through which opposing parties get access to the same information in a case. So specifically, we're talking about criminal cases. The subject was today.
Right. I'm saying this is. I'm just reading it in the Daily News from last week. I like to read papers a week late. I really do, so I can say, thank God this crap isn't happening today. But I'm reading about this judge who's on the courts in Brooklyn, won a seat in the court in Brooklyn, but she's in trouble now because she withheld evidence from the prosecutor for some guy that's sitting in jail, and now she's being in trouble for this because they found out that she said that this guy that testified was not getting any special treatment. And it turned out he was.
That's the John Juka case, which
Yes.
was reversed after 14 years on prosecutorial misconduct grounds. Yes.
Right. Well, it was in last week's paper.
Yes,
because the judge is now in trouble
Yes.
because she was the prosecutor.
Yeah, she was one of them. The main one was Anna Nicola.
Right,
Yeah,
and
Anna
they all
Nicolazzi,
said that
Anna
this point.
Nicolazzi.
Well,
But
you
yes.
can tell the people. They said the guy wasn't getting any special treatment. Their star witness. It turned out he was, right?
Sure, yes, and that the person who was the judge was actually the one who was keeping up with what was going on with him in court, and she kept wanting to make sure that the judge knew that he was cooperating in this murder case that he was testifying. And why would you want to, as a prosecutor, why would you want to ensure that the judge knew that another person was cooperating in a homicide if that wasn't to let the judge know that in fact he was getting a deal? Let's give him preferential treatment. Because there was a number of times where the conduct he engaged in should have resulted in his violating
There was drugs
probation.
in prison.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to be getting punishments in prison for still doing drugs in prison, and for some reason he wasn't being punished.
Wow.
But he was out. He was breaking the probation by engaging in drug
Right.
usage and escaping from the rehab and shenanigans like that. Yes.
So in discovery, they had a right to know that he was actually.
Yes, he
getting-
did.
So if
Yes.
he's being incentivized in that way, how do you know that he's giving the true testimony?
Well,
How do you-
that's the whole point. Is it's questionable
Yeah.
about whether they are, and what we're saying is that in New York's archaic discovery laws, which are amongst the worst in the country, by the way, that a lot of times not only is there's a number of things wrong with it. First of all, the prosecution has access to all the information. They don't give it over to the defense, and really to promote the case to come out the right way. Accurate. Both sides should have access to the same information. Different prosecutors, they wait longer. All these different
Slow
walking the information over. Wow. Sometimes it's not uncommon for a defense lawyer to have a bunch of documents dumped in their lap just before a witness takes the stand.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're saying we want automatic discovery. And another problem with the way it's done now is that it's up to the prosecutor, the way it is now, to look through the file and to determine what information could be helpful to the defense. That's not the right role for the prosecutor. The defense lawyer should have the whole file and decide what in the file could be
what's
usable or not
usable,
usable.
or a neutral party at least.
Right, or a neutral
Because I've
party.
seen that
Right.
in some high-profile court cases where a neutral party, wasn't it just one of the Trump cases where a neutral party had to go through certain documents before they said that Mueller was entitled to them? Well, Manafort case.
Yeah.
It was the Manafort
Probably
case.
it was a judge that decided that.
Right,
Yes.
he said he had to look at the documents. He assigned a neutral party to look at some documents Manafort had to decide what was actually sensitive information that should be kept private, because the government was saying it's all private.
Yeah,
Which government is like to do that? It's all private. But they assigned a neutral party that was agreed upon by both sides to actually sift through the evidence, and then the defense and the prosecutor got what they needed to get, because a neutral party was able to say, well, there is some stuff that is sensitive and we can't allow into the public arena.
And this is what your foundation is working on. this
Yeah,
type of stuff.
myself and the other groups in the coalition, Discovery for Justice, it can happen to you, Vocal, Cattell, we were all up there working on that. There was a press conference also. One of the arguments that I made in the press conference was that, as a plaintiff, when I brought lawsuits after I was exonerated for being wrongfully imprisoned for 16 years, I had more discovery that way as a plaintiff than what I did when I was the defendant facing the charges. And that's backwards to me. It should you can't the discovery for a defendant shouldn't lag behind what's available on the civil side.
So now tell me this, because now this gets me to segue into the other thing we talked about, Joe Hines dying.
Yes.
And the latter part of his career has been tainted by a lot of wrongful convictions because of
Well, he was withholding evidence.
Yes, he was.
Of an alleged crooked cop, because nothing has been adjudicated on that. So we'll say alleged. But the fact is, he broke discovery rules apparently.
Yeah, he did. So I'll say this. So in Joe Hines' regime as a Brooklyn DA, their office was in the habit of giving deals to witnesses and not disclosing the deals, so that violating discovery. And then on top of that, the witnesses were lying about getting deals from the stand, and the prosecutor has a duty to correct that, but they weren't correcting it.
So they were saying they weren't getting special
Treatment.
See,
And
because
actually worked.
normally when
Yes,
you give a person
correct.
a deal, the defense lawyer comes up, says, didn't you just commit such and such a crime? Well, what are you being charged with? They're trying to say the guy, make it allude to the fact that the guy, even though he may be telling the truth, but they're trying to put a reasonable doubt in the jury's mind that he's only saying this to get the special treatment.
Sure, yeah.
So
Sure.
if the
Well,
guy
it goes
says,
to the matter of credibility. It's a legit
right,
question.
that's the word, right, credibility. So if the guy says, I'm not getting any deal, then
That puts them in a whole different light. That if they have to fess up and say, yeah, actually, I was supposed to go away for 20 years. I'm actually going away for 6 now.
Yeah.
Something
As long
like
as I
that.
say what this guy wants me to say.
Right.
Now-
Right. But I want to just finish on the point with Hines for just a quick second.
I'm going to bring you there.
Okay.
Because you had exonerated
Yes.
some people that were
Right.
wrongfully convicted under this man.
Right, William Lopez.
Do you
Right.
judge a man's entire career for the last part?
Well-
Number one, just quickly, but then you can go into your stuff with Hines.
But it spanned longer than that. If it was just the last part,
we're being only
I would
told
say-
it was only this little part.
No. But see, there's actually 23 people were exonerated by Ken Thompson when Ken took over from Hines.
It's amazing how they don't report.
23 people were exonerated, and on that, a lot of those cases had evidence withholding. So to me, it was a terrible legacy. I mean, look, the man's not alive. No one needs to kick dirt on his name. But at the same time, I don't feel it's justice either to, portray things other than what they are or to romanticize them. He allowed a culture to take place in the Brooklyn DA's office in which evidence withholding. They had another thing where witnesses were held in hotel rooms against their will until they would change their story, holding beyond the pale of what the court, and really, as Ken Thompson said, look, I've inherited an office of shame.
Well, I'm not disputing that. My point is that you read in the papers, there's 2 lines devoted to that part of his career.
Yeah.
I'm asking you, does that deserve more than 2 lines?
It absolutely deserves more.
I know
than
it's a
2
simple
lines.
softball question,
Yes.
but I
The
mean,
answer
I've
is
known
yes.
you long enough.
Yes.
And we've had some of your success stories on the show.
Yes. Look, if he had a few lapses, him or anybody else in the district attorney's office or any other political office, okay, and he had a few lapses of judgment, some questionable things, even if he just did some things wrong, I would not consider that would overshadow somebody's
Because people are
overall
human.
legacy, because people are human. Okay, but for him, there was 23 people, and there's a lot of people even now that are still fighting to come out. We were just talking about the John Juka case, which is he's still in. A lot of people are still in, so that wasn't some small blip on the radar. This is what his regime was really all
Was
about.
organized.
When
Was
Ken
organized.
Thompson came in, did he clean house? Did he replace
Yeah,
a lot of people?
he replaced some people.
Because I would imagine it was
Yes.
probably systemic.
Yeah, it was systemic. Yeah, he replaced a lot of people, not everybody, but a good amount of people, sure. And he set up the conviction review unit.
But is that a paper tiger, or are they actually reviewing convictions?
Well, remember, Ken's not there anymore. He passed.
Ken
Right.
But
died.
when he was there, it was not a paper tiger because 23 people were exonerated.
No, man,
under
because
his
you
unit.
told me we just talked about last week.
But it's Eric Gonzalez now, and he
It's
was
Eric
Ken's
Gonzalez.
sort of deputy.
He was Ken's deputy, yeah, but see, there's been 2 exonerations since Ken passed away, so that unit's not the same anymore. That unit is going the way of a lot of the sham units now.
Well, because I look at the when they say these Albany watchdogs, and they're a bunch of shams because it's always
Yes.
the feds that got to go. Is this really a true unit looking out to right and injustice?
I don't consider that it is anymore, no. I mean, look, there was we talked about Scarcella, right?
Right.
Where 9 of his cases have resulted.
He was
in
the police
exoneration.
officer.
Yeah, he was he's a
Right.
detective. And in 7 cases, he used the same drug addict eyewitness as a sole eyewitness. Who supposedly saw seven murders. Okay, so I guess she was like she knew she was in the right
What
place.
the
at the right
odds?
time.
My God, she could do Murder, She Wrote. I mean, if you were a friend with Jessica
Fletcher?
Yes.
you were either going to get killed or accused of the murder.
My father always said never go on vacation to a cottage with Jessica Fletcher.
Right.
Someone was going
Same
to die.
thing, never be friends with McMillan and wife, because the only way the commissioner got involved is if their friends got killed.
So this woman, by happenstance, happened to witness 7 different murders.
Yeah. So 9 of his, I believe the number is 9 of his cases have been overturned.
God.
There's still a ton of people still in prison whose cases he worked on. Now, are all of them innocent? No, but those cases need to be looked at. Some
Yeah.
of them still are, but nobody's emerging.
but no lawyer
the
with
rate
the
at
salt
which-
is not going to try to file.
No, I agree with that. No, I know, but it's up to the court to determine legitimate claims from illegitimate
Right.
ones. My only point is
No.
that since Eric took over, only 2 people have been exonerated since then. What's the holdup, Eric? No one else in there is
No, my-
innocent?
my-
So
I
27, and then all of a sudden just 2.
23, and
23.
now just 2.
Now, like
a
I'm
real
going to ask
drop.
you, because
Yes.
your foundation gets a lot of requests.
We do.
And you have to sort through them.
Sure.
So now you have a rough idea what they're going through. The courts have to sort through the legitimate claims
Yes,
versus the
I do.
illegitimate claims. So can you give the people an idea what you go through
Yes.
when you're sorting between a legitimate claim and what's illegitimate? Because people
Mm-hmm.
can, oh, come on, there's got to be an easy way. Obviously, you have to really go back and look.
You have to really go back and look. So you would review all the documents in the case. We would review legal documents.
Do you look at the transcripts?
We do once it gets past a certain stage. So what we do
Okay.
initially is we look at appeal briefs just for the factual section as like a type of cliff notes.
Yeah.
So cases earn time. So you're not going to start out reading 1,000 or a couple thousand pages. You're going to read a condensed abbreviation first, and if you think that there's something there, then you're going to delve more deeper into it. And so really we're asking ourselves 2 questions. Does the applicant have a colorable claim of innocence based on something objective? And number 2, is there a way to prove it? So that means we're going to look at what was used as evidence in light of.
And I would assume the district attorney's office uses the same.
Yes, they say a same methodology.
First,
sure.
you have to say, is it reasonable to go
Yes.
further?
Yeah, correct. Of course.
Now, you don't have the manpower of a district attorney's
No,
office.
no, obviously not. which
But
is-
what I'm saying is, but it does take a lot of time.
it does.
And do you get personally or emotionally involved in these things? really
Yes
have
and
to
no.
ask
Yes,
you
yes,
because
yes and
it's-
no. Yes and no. So I do, but I don't let that affect the decisions. And my safeguard for that is I don't make the decisions myself. It's a collective decision. There's like 5 people that make
Because the
make a
guy you
decision, and we
brought,
bring
the
in
guy you brought on
consensus.
the show, you were emotionally invested in.
I was, but by that point he was exonerated.
Right,
he was
but
out.
you were-
Our belief in him was validated
Right,
by
but
the
you
court.
were emotionally invested in his future.
Yes.
We took-
Because we became friends. He
Right.
transcended being a client. He became a friend.
That's
Yes.
what I'm saying. So when he died, I knew that was tough because you
That was
called
very
me
tough.
when that happened.
Yeah.
we talked.
Yeah, I know.
And I understand, but I'm saying, is it tough to separate yourself?
But that's it sometimes it can be, but that's why it's a team approach.
Because there's got to be a human
And
equation.
everybody puts that in the letter. Oh, I knew Jeff. I'm in prison. I know, and they think that that's going to somehow make
Yeah.
a difference, but it doesn't. Their case rises or falls on its own
On
merits.
its merit.
Because otherwise, we're going to be wasting our time, and I don't want us to
That's
waste
not
time.
what I'm talking about being personally. You start talking to these people,
Mm-hmm.
and if their story really rings true, and like I said, you can't help but bring back memories of yourself.
Right.
Does an emotion kick in, saying, I'm going to do what I can do because I'm not going to let this guy spend one more day than necessary because of your experience?
Yeah, but we're basing things on the legal documents and not the emotion, though. That's the thing.
I-
We're
I accept that, but I'm saying, but does the emotion make you go the extra mile
Yes,
in
it
some
does.
cases?
Yes, it does. I contact people, the people who are doing the initial screening or reporting back. Listen, man, where are we at with this? Can we hurry this up? What's going on? So a couple times, the ultimate negative thing happened, and it bothers me even right now, even just to say it. But I'm going to. We're sharing.
Yeah.
You know, but there were two people who, before we actually got to their case, so we don't even know whether they actually were innocent. We know that they were claiming to be.
Right.
But before we even got to their case to screen it, they passed away.
Yeah.
And so I got an emotional email and phone call. You can take so and so off of your list. I'm his wife, and he passed away.
That's gotta hurt.
That hurt. Yes, that hurt me a lot. That hurt me a lot.
Well, that's a big conversation happening up in Albany right now, especially with people, our bail system.
Right.
People who have not yet been convicted of a crime that are staying in places like Rikers. And
Khalif
every
Browder.
year,
Khalif Browder.
Yeah, but people that commit suicide or are murdered while in Rikers.
Right.
They have not been found guilty.
Right. Correct.
I didn't want to just stay on criminal justice, but you're
We can
here.
go- we can
No.
go after that.
But I wanna
because
hear
you
what's
brought up-
happening up in
I said
Albany because there's so many
Darren brought
bills.
something
There's
up here.
consensus now in Albany.
Cashless bail. What is this cashless bail thing that Cuomo's pushing, and what do you think about it? Because it ties into what he's asking you.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, there's cash, there's bond. You can have a partially secured bond. You can have a totally unsecured bond. So, I mean, there is not... The idea is that cash bail punishes people by letting them stay in jail before they're convicted, basically for being poor. That's the argument, and I think that there's some legitimacy to that, and it's harder to fight your case while you're still inside than when you're in. Your attorney has less access to you, a host of obvious reasons that I won't elaborate on. So when people are released ROR or on a small amount of bail or one of these alternative formats, right, there's not really a difference in the people coming back to court. So I think that there are some legs on bail reform. I think discovery reform has some legs to it. And of course, there's the trend in terms of closing Rikers Island.
What do you think about that?
Okay, so here's what I think. Look, I don't think that is a panacea, because at the end of the day, there's still going to be people in jail, and they're not going to weed out the abusive guards and fire them, okay? They're just not. All they're going to do is redistribute them. So it's not...
Yeah, if they're talking about closing Rikers and opening 5 other
Yes,
jails.
yes. So what I think is that, so while it's not a panacea, I think it's a good idea on the balance, because Rikers Island costs a lot more money to run this way than if it was separate. So I think it makes sense that way. But number two, just from a logistical point of view, to visit somebody in Rikers, and I've done that a few times, it takes all day, because you have to go several bus rides, you go through security several times, going and coming. So instead of just going right in, doing your hour visit and leave. So I think that for those two reasons, and just the culture that's there, the guard abuse on the prisoners abuse on themselves, the gang infestations,
What about the prisoner
corruption.
abuse on the guards?
That too. No, that too. I agree with that too. Look, I'm against all of that
I
stuff.
mean, you're in a situation where
Right.
you're on either side of the gate. You're not with God's kindest works of art.
I would agree.
And
No,
so
I
you're
agree.
going. It is literally a jungle and survival of the fittest on both sides of the.
I
bars.
agree. I agree that it is.
And as a person that's never been there,
Right.
never want to be there, I find it tough to want to sit back and judge anybody's actions because I'm not there to know what I would do to survive.
Well, it's a different environment. You can't judge what goes on in jail by the same
And
standards as outside.
that's coming up right now with this, what's happening in Brooklyn with the federal facility, the holding facility. People are saying, oh my God, the prisoners are in such bad conditions. And the corrections officer union was like, yeah, guess who else is in that building with no heat, no water,
Right.
bad
Yeah,
conditions.
see, that shouldn't be allowed. That's just inhumane.
I agree. That's
That's a human
But
rights
also, but the
violation. as far
corrections
as I'm
officers are
concerned.
also saying
they're
you're
being
right.
subjected to it too.
They're being subjected to it as well. So they're
I
both
said
sides.
both sides of the bars.
Yeah,
It's,
but
you
that's
know,
federal. That's a federal building.
Right.
Which is weird. You would
No,
think that they would have the funding to keep that up a little
Yeah, well, you would think that. Well, the state government has the funding also. I mean, the state and federal government, they have the power to tax. They have the money.
Of course they do. Now, my question is about the power to tax. You've got the governor going on television saying New York State is going to be almost $3 billion short in money.
Yeah.
He's going to have to redo his budget. And it's all Trump's fault because people are leaving New York because of the policies out of Washington, not because our taxes are too high. And I'm saying to myself, I remember when Astorino ran against Cuomo 4 years ago. And I wrote about the exodus of New Yorkers leaving New York because of the high taxes. And Trump wasn't even anywhere at that. So what, I mean, how much to blame for the exodus of people from upstate New York because of the policies that are forcing people not to go to work, and the tax policies that, how much blame goes to
Exodus from New
Albany?
York. I know that there was a joke about 2 weeks ago. People were laughing because a study was showing that the weather was driving people out of upstate New York, and people were like, oh, it's the weather. It's tons of other reasons, yada yada. But what was happening was, as we are living longer, as we extend longevity, upstate New York, and I mean upstate, rural, up by Canada, upstate New York, is not a good place to retire. And so we're getting a lot of people now that are boomers, and they can retire, and they're healthy, and they do not want to spend their days shoveling snow and ice and worrying about
being
their
in
hip,
cold weather,
being cold. So they're fleeing. They're fleeing upstate New York, and the number one thing that they're citing is the weather. They want
So
to go.
you don't think
They want to go to North Carolina. They want to go to
Yes,
Florida.
that's why you're here.
They want to go to Arizona. They want to go to, and you could see the places that are growing the fastest in the country: Nevada, North Carolina, South Carolina,
Florida.
Florida. They're
warm
all
weather.
warm weather areas, and it's a lot of it is seniors, is retirees, and they don't want to retire up there.
Right. Well, what I wanted to say, though, is, I mean, the idea that policies from D.C. are causing people in New York to make an exodus, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's ridiculous because there is no legislation coming out of Washington, D.C. that's targeting New York specifically. So whatever the federal government passes, that would apply equally as to all the states.
So, I mean, I'm listening to Cuomo.
I mean, the only thing though is the tax issue that we used to be able to deduct our entire
but my point is,
property tax.
but
Now it's
all
limited to $10,000.
All that salt.
Westchester, which has a lot of people that pay, $20,000 in taxes a year. They used to be able to deduct all $20,000. Now they can only deduct $10,000.
But
So
that would
they're
affect
taking
the whole country, though. So
No, it's only
Because-
it does, but some states have lower state taxes.
So then the issue is we need an adjustment in New York's taxes then.
Kind of, sort of, right? So what
I mean,
happens is blue states, technically, if I can just be parochial about this,
Yeah,
blue and red
yeah,
states, right?
yeah.
Blue states that have higher state taxes because they fund a lot more stuff.
Yeah, so
So
the
if you
programs,
go
right.
to like Alabama and they say, well, we've got lower state tax in Alabama. Yeah, you also got really bad roads, really bad schools, really bad stuff. If you taxed your people a little bit more, you'd be able to fund things a little bit better. So places that believe in funding kind of public use, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, those are sort of your blue states. And the way it used to be a wash because, you're giving the money to the state, but then you're writing it off your Fed.
But see, to make the perfect segue off of your points just now, I think that the budgetary shortfall is one of the main motivations and is going to be addressed by the legalization of marijuana.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Not only in the short run, but in the long run, if we stopped incarcerating people at the levels that we've been doing it,
Well,
we
not
would
only
save
that,
money
but
as
I
well.
think it's
Yeah,
more
as a
than-
country,
it's-
we've come to look at incarceration as the answer for everything.
It's more than the legalization of marijuana because when I hear when you legalize gambling, now we say, well, look at Atlantic City. Well, that's because New York already started opening up casinos up here. So when Atlantic City made their fortune, and New Yorkers going there to gamble. They don't got to go there now because you don't see that place in Yonkers or the Aqueduct going broke.
No, but that's also not a real gambling thing either. I mean, it's all these machines. It's all
Yeah,
these machines.
yeah,
There's no
machines.
cards.
Yeah, but
There's no
people-
cards.
Right, but
I've done it before. It's
right.
not the same experience.
I
Right,
can't
but
pay
people
that
don't
because my
cards.
mother goes once a month and she loves it.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
all
but
I'm
you
saying is
Yonkers
that
But they don't have
Raceway
to
and
take
it's
that
missing.
6-hour trip to Atlantic City
Right.
by
Yeah.
bus.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
No,
So
no.
they'll sacrifice the life dealer for the machine.
right.
I'm just saying that.
You think we'll have marijuana reform this year or next year?
I believe that there is going to be, rightly or wrongly, I think that there seems to be a consensus. The governor's pushing it, and both parties seem to be going in that
Because of the
direction.
money.
The monetary
The
aspect
money
is a
is
huge...
all of a sudden when you see all that money coming in, all of a sudden it ain't such a bad
But here's
thing
the
after all.
exoneration question. Are they going to, what do you call that when you clear someone's
Expungement.
record? Expungement. Will there be,
We
will
talked
there be
about that on the
expungement?
last show. You weren't here.
I
We
think,
talked about that.
Well, look, here's what I think. I think if as a state, marijuana is is legalized, that anybody who has a drug conviction on any misdemeanor, whatever it is, misdemeanor, it should be expunged.
How far back?
Period. No limit. If you're going to legalize it, then nobody should have a record and be stigmatized based on it.
Okay, so you think no matter how long it's been, even going back to if you were arrested in the 70s?
Yes.
It should be all erased.
I believe it should be all erased. If we're going to legalize it, if we are, all or nothing. All of us or none of us.
I agree. And where do you think it should? See, I've always known since the 80s that the design was to have the liquor stores, because they already have the regulation for booze, sell the pot.
Well, pharmacies could too. I mean, especially for medical purposes,
I
it
want
seems
to be
to
the
be
bakeries.
natural.
For the brown.
I want the bakeries. I want everyone.
There are products that people buy and eat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
My sister-in-law runs a pet care place. She's gonna love Pets a Go-Go. Take your dogs there, but they can give the dogs little edibles with CBG oil.
CBD.
CBD oil, and it calms the dogs down from anxieties and stuff.